Welcome, traveler, to Whispers of the Night. Tonight, your footsteps will carry you into a place where the world softens into gold. The air is warm, scented with the quiet perfume of autumn leaves. Light drips like honey between the branches, catching on threads of spider silk and drifting dust, each one a tiny star in its own small galaxy. Somewhere ahead, a fox waits, hidden in the half-shadows, watching with eyes that hold a secret older than the forest itself. As you breathe in, the noise of the day falls away. As you breathe out, the path opens before you, a tunnel of stillness, of amber air, of promises that belong only to the night. And now we begin. Breathe deeply now. The air here is slow and warm, like the last sip of sunlight before dusk. Each step you take presses gently into a carpet of leaves, layers of memory, years of forest life folded together beneath your feet. Above, the branches bend low, forming a vaulted arch, their edges rimmed with light. Golden dust floats through the stillness, each speck a silent traveler drifting without hurry. Somewhere in the distance, a small bird trills, the sound trembling in the air before dissolving into quiet. The fox moves ahead, unhurried, as if guiding you not to a place, but into a feeling, the soft weight of peace, the steady hum of the living earth. You notice the way the light bends through each leaf, scattering into amber and copper, the same scattering that paints sunsets and deepens twilight skies. The deeper you walk, the slower the world becomes, until even your heartbeat feels like part of the forest's rhythm. Every sound, every shimmer of light is a gentle thread, weaving you into the night's tapestry. You are safe here. You are welcome here. You are exactly where you need to be. Rustling leaves and a fox's secret path. The first breath of autumn. You feel the change before you see it, a cool breeze carrying the scent of turning leaves. The forest seems to soften, its colors melting into gold, copper, and russet. Somewhere ahead, the hush of movement brushes the edge of your hearing, and just beyond the trees, a fox lingers, watching you from the shadows. Asterisk, you walk slowly, as though the day itself has asked you to take your time. The air feels different now, not cold, not yet, but touched by something quieter, a gentler hand brushing the heat of summer aside. Asterisk, you draw a breath, and it comes with a note of wood smoke from a far-off cottage, faint and warm against the coolness settling into the air. Asterisk, autumn has not yet fully claimed the forest, but its promise is here in the tilt of the light, in the way shadows stretch themselves just a little longer across the path above you. The leaves are still clinging to their summer green, yet a few have already shifted toward gold and copper. They glow faintly when the sun slips through the branches, as though they are holding the last rays of warmth before letting them go. Your steps are slow on the path, and each one seems to stir a little more of the forest's scent, earth, bark, the delicate sweetness of fungi that rise after the rain. You listen not for any one sound, but for the layering of them all. The soft ruffle of leaves in the breeze, the occasional acorn falling and landing with a hollow thud, the distant call of a jay, sharp but fading quickly into the hush. It is a different kind of quiet than summer's stillness. This quiet feels full, like a held breath. The science of the season is written all around you. Though nature does not announce it with fanfare, you know that autumn's arrival is in part an answer to the sun's changing angle. The earth tilts gently in its orbit, and here, in your part of the world, the days grow shorter, less light reaches each leaf, and inside them, the great factories of photosynthesis begin to slow. You picture it in each tiny green cell. Chlorophyll, that deep pigment of summer, begins to fade. Without its dominance, other colors that have been there all along begin to show. Carotenoids, rich in yellow and gold. Anthocyanins, deep in crimson and purple. They are not newly made, but newly revealed, as though the trees have been quietly holding these colors for a special occasion. A leaf flutters down before you, now not spinning wildly, but drifting in slow arcs, as though it knows you are watching. You bend to pick it up. Its surface is dry in places, but still holds a trace of softness. Veins run through it like rivers on a map. You trace them with your finger, imagining the flow of water and nutrients that once moved along those channels. It will join the others on the forest floor, where time and the smallest of creatures will work it back into soil. And in that soil, the tree will drink its nutrients. Again, a quiet circle you can almost feel beneath your feet. The air moves, and with it comes a sound that is not quite wind, not quite the stir of an animal. You pause. Somewhere ahead, the hush of movement brushes the edge of your hearing. Not close enough to startle, but close enough to notice. You step forward, slower now, letting the forest adjust to your presence. Your breathing becomes part of its rhythm, in with the rustle of leaves, out with the creak of branches. There is a shape between two silver birch trunks, not large, not tall, but still, the kind of stillness that belongs to creatures who know the forest better than you ever could. Amber eyes catch the light. A fox dot. It stands with a kind of effortless balance, as though its paws rest on invisible strings, holding it perfectly above the earth. Its fur is the color of deep autumn leaves, and in the low sun, each hair seems brushed with copper. You and the fox share a moment in which nothing moves. Science tells you that foxes, vulpes, the red fox, are found across nearly every continent, adaptable, clever, solitary when they choose to be, but also curious. And curiosity, you feel now, is flowing both ways. You recall how their hearing is keen enough to to detect the rustle of a mouse under snow, how they can leap in a perfect arc to land precisely where that sound comes from. Yet here, it is not hunting, not fleeing, it simply watches. You do not step closer. The space between you is a quiet agreement. Instead, you let your gaze wander to the edges of the scene, the way the birch bark peels in curled white ribbons, the way lichens make tiny gardens of gray and green across their trunks. The fox flicks its ear, a gesture so small, yet it feels like an answer. Then it turns, not with alarm, but with the deliberate grace of something certain of its path. Its tail full, thick, white-tipped, is the last thing you see before it moves deeper into the trees. You stand for a moment longer, letting the silence close around you. The science of the season continues to play out all around, under the soil. Fungi weave networks that connect roots from one tree to another. Through these mycorrhizal threads, sugars and nutrients travel, shared between species. A beech might send extra carbon to a shaded sapling. An old oak might share minerals with the younger trees around it. Some studies call this the wood wide web, though the trees do not think in those human metaphors. For them, it is simply survival, a mutual benefit shaped by millions of years. And it humbles you, knowing that while you walk here above, entire conversations are taking place below your feet in languages you cannot hear. A breeze passes again, and this time you notice the temperature drop only slightly, but enough that the skin along your arms feels it. This cooling is part of the greater shift, the gradual equalizing of day and night temperatures that tells the plants it is time to prepare for rest. Some will shed leaves to conserve water through winter. Others, like the evergreens, will keep their needles, their waxy coatings, helping them endure the cold months ahead. You continue along the path, your senses more open now, as though the fox has invited you to pay closer attention. A cluster of mushrooms grows at the base of a fallen log, delicate caps no wider than your fingernail. They will last only a few days, but in that time, they will help break down the wood, returning its carbon to the forest. Above, a squirrel bounds from branch to branch, carrying an acorn nearly as large as its head. It pauses to wedge it into a hidden nook, one of hundreds it will store before winter. Some will be forgotten, and from those forgotten ones, new oaks will one day grow. These small stories of leaves, of mushrooms, of squirrels, and foxes are all part of autumn's larger narrative. It is not a season of endings, so much as one of preparations, of quiet work that will make the next spring possible. You stop beside a small stream. The water is clear, moving just fast enough to catch the light in ripples. Fallen leaves float along, turning slowly, their edges catching on small stones before slipping free again. You crouch, touch the surface with your fingertips. It is cooler than you expect. The stream, fed by underground springs, carries the memory of the season's change in its temperature. Somewhere beyond the curve of the bank, you hear another soft movement. You glance, but see only the sway of grass. Perhaps the fox again, perhaps something else. In autumn, the forest feels full of presences, seen and unseen, each going about its own quiet work. A crow calls overhead, its voice carrying far before fading into the layered silence. You watch it glide above the canopy, its dark wings cutting across the pale sky. Migratory birds are beginning their long journeys now, guided by a mix of instinct, celestial cues, and even the Earth's magnetic field. You think of them crossing continents while you stand here, rooted to one small path in one small forest. The sun lowers, and the light turns from gold to amber, then to a soft, cool gray. The air smells sharper now, the way it does when night begins to rise. You find yourself walking slower still, as though you want to stretch this chapter of the day for as long as possible. The fox does not return, but you feel its presence lingering somewhere just ahead, just beyond sight. A guide not to be followed too closely, but to be trusted nonetheless. You pause where the path bends. Ahead, the forest deepens, shadows pooling like still water between the trees. You wonder where this bend will lead, asterisk somewhere beyond that curve. The leaves lie thicker on the ground, and their shapes seem almost to form a map, one that might lead you deeper into the fox's quiet world, asterisk. The map of fallen leaves. Leaves scatter beneath your steps, forming a patchwork of rust and sunlight. Each one holds a journey from high branch to soil, from summer to stillness. The path they shape twists like a quiet riddle through the undergrowth far ahead. The fox's tail flickers, drawing you further into the woods. Asterisk, the path curves away from the last bend, and you find yourself walking into a floor of color. Leaves, hundreds of them, lie in soft, uneven layers across the earth, a patchwork quilt of rust, ochre, lemon yellow, and the deep, wine-rich reds of the season's last maples. You step carefully, not to avoid them, but to feel their sound. The crisp ones break like paper under your shoes. Others are damp from yesterday's rain, their edges softening back into the soil, making almost no sound at all. You crouch and lift one in your hand, a sycamore, broad and star-shaped, its veins fanning from a central stem. Even now, as it begins to curl inward, it is still holding the memory of the summer sun that once fed the tree. Leaves, you know, are more than decoration. They are nature's solar panels, crafted over millions of years to capture sunlight and turn it into energy. Inside each one, tiny chloroplasts once worked tirelessly, gathering light and using it to bind water from the soil and carbon dioxide from the air into sugars, the trees, food, and the foundation for so much of life in the forest. Now, in autumn, the sunlight grows weaker, and the tree has quietly decided to let them go. You can almost imagine the process, the base of each stem sealing off, the green of chlorophyll breaking down, and hidden pigments, gold carotenoids, red anthocyanins rising to the surface, like secret paintings revealed under fading varnish. The fox is ahead again. You glimpse it only for a moment, the white tip of its tail, a flicker between two oaks before it vanishes deeper along the path. It does not hurry, but it does not linger, as though it knows that part of the journey is in not quite catching it. The leaves on the ground form patterns if you look long enough. Here, A winding curve of yellow birch leaves could be a river on a map. There, a cluster of scarlet oak leaves resembles a mountain range seen from far above. Your mind begins to wander, imagining the forest floor as an atlas of the season, each leaf marking a place in a story older than you. A soft breeze moves through, and you notice how the air here feels cooler than before. The shade is thicker. The sun's angle sends light in long, slanting beams that stripe the path like the pages of an open book. On one side of the trail, a small rise is covered in beeches. Their leaves have turned to a pale, warm copper, and when the wind brushes through them, the sound is like the faintest chime, a dry, fluttering music. Some scientists have studied the acoustics of trees in different seasons, noting how dry leaves produce higher-pitched rustles than green ones, the sound shaped by their structure and moisture content. Even without measuring, you can feel the truth of it. Autumn's voice is sharper, more delicate than summer's full, leafy chorus. You move on, stepping over a fallen branch covered in lichen. Lichens are small worlds in themselves, partnerships between fungi and algae, or sometimes cyanobacteria. Together, they make a life neither could manage alone. The algae or bacteria capture sunlight. The fungi hold water and give structure. They grow slowly, some species adding only a millimeter a year, but they endure. This one, pale green and curled like tiny scrolls, might be decades old. The fox's tail flickers again ahead, a brief curl of white before it slips into shadow. You follow, not out of urgency, but because each step seems to draw you deeper into the forest's layered stillness. Here, the leaves underfoot grow thicker. Some have landed in overlapping spirals, as though the wind had been careful in their arrangement. Others are piled high against the mossy bases of tree trunks, forming little drifts that shelter beetles and centipedes from the cool air. You pause beside a sugar maple, its branches mostly bare now. Looking up through its crown, you see a scatter of remaining leaves holding on their stems, bending in the breeze, light streaming through the thin, red tissue. You think about how those last leaves will eventually fall, not all at once, but in twos and threes, each drifting down on its own path. The way they fall is not random. Physicists have studied it. The shape, weight, and air resistance of a leaf create a particular descent pattern. Some spin like coins, others flutter side to side like tiny gliders. In still air, a maple leaf might drift almost straight down. In a crosswind, it may dance all the way to a neighboring clearing. You picture the leaves as they land, each choosing its own resting place. Over weeks, rain will soften them. Fungi will spread through their tissues. Insects will chew at their edges. By winter, the colors will be gone. The veins will collapse, and they will join the dark mulch at the forest's base soil, being written, one layer at a time. A crow passes overhead, calling once, its shadow sliding quickly across the leaves in front of you. The light is shifting again, the sun slipping lower. The colors on the ground seem to deepen, golds becoming amber, reds leaning toward rust. You breathe it in, feeling the season move through you. Farther ahead, the fox pauses long enough for you to see its head turn toward you. The light catches its eyes again, bright and unwavering. Then it moves on, the white tip of its tail vanishing behind a knot of hazel shrubs. The path narrows here, hemmed in by undergrowth. Brambles hold a few last berries, their skins wrinkling now, their sweetness nearly spent. A robin hops among them, pecking at one, then flitting into the branches above somewhere to your right. Water trickles, a tiny rill moving through a channel of stones. Fallen leaves float on its surface, their stems catching on pebbles before the current frees them again. If you were to follow it, it would lead to a larger stream, then to a river, then perhaps to the sea, carrying with it the colors of this small patch of forest. You keep walking. Your pace matches the rhythm of your breath, and soon it feels as though the whole forest is moving with you. The patterns of the leaves shift again, fewer reds now, more browns and yellows. The ground grows uneven, and you step over the roots of an oak whose trunk twists like an old rope. Oaks hold their leaves longer than most trees, sometimes well into winter. The papery remnants rattling in the wind long after snow has fallen. Botanists call this marcescence, the retention of dead leaves, though the reasons are still not entirely certain. Some think it protects buds from grazing deer. Others believe it helps trap snow around the base, giving the roots more water. In spring, the science lingers in your mind, but the sound of the leaves brings you back into the moment. Each step through them releases a different note, crisp, damp, brittle, soft. Together they make a quiet music that belongs only to this season. The fox is somewhere ahead, always just out of reach. You wonder if it is leading you somewhere, or if you are simply moving in the same direction by chance. You reach a place where the path widens again. Here the ground is carpeted with yellow beech leaves, so thick it feels as though you are walking on cloth. The breeze lifts a few into the air, and they swirl before settling again, as if rearranging themselves into a new design on the forest's map. You stop and look back at the path you have taken. The leaves there are already shifting, covering your footprints. Soon there will be no sign of your passing. It makes you think of how many footsteps this path has known animals, people, perhaps even the fox you follow. In seasons long before this one, the air is cooling more quickly now. A faint mist begins to gather low to the ground, blurring the edges of the path ahead. Through it, you see the fox once more, no more than a shadow, but unmistakable in the way it stands still, ears forward, tail low. It waits just long enough for you to notice, then slips silently out of view. You take another step and another, each one carrying you deeper into the quiet geometry of the forest floor. The map of leaves stretches before you, and though you cannot read it in the way you would a paper chart, something in it feels clear. Every line, every patch of color, every curve of the path tells you this is the way to go. You follow, letting the forest write its map under your feet, asterisk beyond the thinning canopy. The ground will change, again softer, greener, and the moss that grows there will carry the quiet memory of every footstep that has ever passed. Rain on the old bridge. The first drops fall, darkening wood planks under your hand below. The stream hums softly, carrying leaves downstream like small, golden boats. Across the bridge, the fox pauses, eyes gleaming in the silver rain. You follow, each footstep weaving into the forest's sleepy rhythm. Asterisk, the first drop lands with a tiny, round sigh on the back of your hand. It is cool and soft, a single pearl of water that slides and vanishes into your skin. Then another falls, brushing your cheek, light as a whispered greeting somewhere above. Clouds have drawn themselves together in a quiet council, their bellies heavy with the weight of autumn rain. The air changes, you can smell the minerals, the damp earth rising in anticipation. You step onto the wooden bridge, feeling the gentle give of each plank beneath your boots. They creak in slow complaint, but it is the kind of sound that belongs here, in this place, in this season. The bridge has been standing long enough to know the way the forest breathes. You rest your fingertips along its rail, feeling the coolness of damp wood seeping into your skin. Tiny beads of water gather on the grain, magnifying each line, each groove, as though the rain is reading the bridge like a well-worn book. Below, the stream moves with patient purpose. It is neither hurried nor still, but something in between, a soft conversation between gravity and stone. Leaves drift along its surface, each one a small, self-contained raft, their edges curling from the slow decay of the season. Some spin lazily in tiny whirlpools near the bank. Others slip away quickly, caught in a faster current, vanishing under the shelter of the bridge and reappearing on the other side. The rain deepens, becoming a soft percussion on the canopy above. Every drop finds its own voice, a muted thud against moss, a ringing ping on a taut, fallen branch, a gentle plink in the open water. The bridge becomes a listening place. You find yourself leaning forward slightly, head tilted, letting the music of it reach you in layers. Across the way, the fox has stopped. It stands at the far end of the bridge, its russet fur darkened in patches by the rain. The tip of its tail flickers once, slow and deliberate, as though acknowledging your presence. Its eyes bright, even under the dim gray sky, fix on you. For a moment, neither of you moves. You feel the space between you fill with the sound of rain, your foot meeting the slick wood with care. The rain has made each plank a mirror, reflecting fragments of your coat, your boots, the pale sky above. Beneath these reflections, the wood grain swirls like frozen water, its rings and knots, a record of years you will never see. You take another step and another. Your pace is slow, measured in rhythm with the rain's steady fall. The fox waits, not impatiently, but in a way that suggests it knows the crossing is part of the journey, not just a means to the other side. It turns its head slightly, looking toward the stream below, and you follow its gaze. Through the rain-silvered air, you see tiny ripples spreading outward where drops touch the water. Each circle expands, meets another, and blends. A simple but perfect demonstration of physics. Every raindrop carries a small amount of kinetic energy, the stored momentum of its fall from cloud to earth. When it lands on the water, it transfers that energy outward in all directions, making ripples. The bigger the drop, the larger the ripple, but each one fades, its energy spent, absorbed into the movement of the stream. It is, in its own way, the story of all things, the giving away of motion, the eventual stillness. And yet the water never truly stops. Even when a ripple vanishes, the stream flows on. The fox steps forward, on to the first plank on its side of the bridge. You mirror the motion without thinking. Two creatures meeting in the middle, bound by something quieter than words. The rain paints its fur in glistening strokes. You notice how the water beads and rolls off the outer hairs, the way nature has designed many mammals to repel moisture, to keep the skin beneath warm and dry. It is a small miracle, not the loud kind, but the kind that works silently, invisibly, to keep life moving through the seasons. By the time you reach the center of the bridge, the rain has become a steady curtain. Your hair clings to your forehead. The shoulders of your coat grow heavier with water, yet there is no hurry in you. Rain slows the world. It muffles sharp sounds, turns distant noises into a soft haze. The forest feels smaller, more intimate, as though the rain is drawing its edges inward. Closer to you, you glance down at the rail again. Droplets form at the lowest edges, swell until they tremble, then fall, joining the countless others in their return to earth. It occurs to you that the water in these drops may have been here before. Once, perhaps, part of the same stream below, lifted into the sky by the sun's warmth, carried for days or weeks in the bellies of clouds. Now it has returned, transformed by the cycle that governs all water on Earth: evaporation, condensation, precipitation, a cycle without true beginning or end, just endless motion. The fox takes another step toward you. Its paws make no sound on the wood, but you can imagine the soft pads pressing against the damp planks. Its eyes meet yours again, holding a depth that feels almost knowing. You wonder if it senses the same thing you do, the way the rain links you both to everything around you. The same water that soaks your hair is darkening its fur, pattering on leaves, filling the veins of mushrooms hidden under the roots. The forest drinks, and in doing so, it connects every living thing in its reach. A breeze stirs, carrying the smell of wet leaves and distant earth. It brushes across the bridge, teasing at the water pooled in the shallow grooves. The fox lowers its head slightly, as though to scent the same wind. Then, with a final glance, it turns and steps toward the far side of the bridge. You follow the rain now, less a background sound, and more a companion, an unseen traveler beside you. The planks give way to soft earth again. Here, the rain makes a different music, a deeper, muted patter as it strikes the forest floor. Moss darkens. Too deep, emerald mushrooms glisten under the low canopy. You take in the way each drop, so small and brief, becomes part of something vast, the renewal of soil, the slow weaving of life back into the ground. You think of seeds buried just beneath the surface, waiting for the precise mix of moisture and temperature to wake them. Some will not stir until spring, but this rain will be remembered in their fibers, stored as a quiet promise. The fox walks ahead, its fur now sleeked down, its tail heavy with water. It does not hurry. The forest path bends slightly, drawing your eyes to where the trees gather in a dense stand ahead. There is a shift in the air, subtle but distinct, the kind of change you feel more than CDOT. It is cooler here, the light dimmer, somewhere in that thickening shadow. Another piece of the journey waits. It feels like a threshold, a line you have crossed, carrying with you the quiet lessons of falling water and the way it joins the world together. Your steps fall in time with the foxes, each movement a gentle parting of wet leaves, each sound softened by the rain's steady rhythm. Ahead, the stream's voice fades into the deeper hush of the woods. The air smells of rain and something older, the layered scent of bark, earth, and time. The fox slips into the shadows without looking back, as though it trusts you will follow. And you do, drawn forward into the cool dimness, where the sound of rain becomes part of the heartbeat of the forest until the trees part again, and something ancient rises before you. The hollow tree. An ancient oak rises before you, its trunk split wide by time and weather. Inside, the air is cool, laced with the scent of moss and resin. You glimpse the quiet remnants of past lives within its shadowed heart. Beyond, the fox waits in a shaft of golden afternoon light. Asterisk, you come upon it slowly, as though the path itself means to give you time to prepare. The trail narrows, leaves pressing in, and the forest floor dips slightly. It is not just wide, it is something more, something older, the kind of presence that feels as if it has been waiting for you for longer than you have been alive. Its bark is rough and fissured, each groove deep enough to hold a fingertip, darkened by centuries of rain and sun. The trunk, massive as a pillar, splits open into a yawning hollow, an arched doorway made by time itself. You pause before stepping closer. The air here changes. It cools, the way a shadow cools when a cloud drifts over the sun. Though no clouds pass above, there is a faint fragrance, earthy and sweet, a mingling of moss, damp wood, and the faint resinous breath of oak sap. You reach out to rest your palm against the bark, and it is solid yet faintly warm. Its walls curve inward like the ribs of some colossal being. Dark whorls mark the grain, and soft green moss has crept into the crevices, painting them with life. A scattering of dry leaves rests at your feet, their edges curled and brittle. Somewhere above, you hear the faint scurry of something small, perhaps a squirrel nesting in one of the higher cavities, or the soft flutter of a bird settling its wings. You breathe in and think of how long this tree has stood. Oaks can live for hundreds of years, some for more than 1,000. In that span, the world around them shifts endlessly. Rivers change course, storms fell neighboring trees, and people come and go, building roads, villages, and stories. Yet the oak remains, a living witness to centuries of change. Trees like this one, with hollowed trunks, are often the result of decay that begins deep inside. Fungi find their way into the heartwood, the dense inner core, breaking it down over decades. The tree, still very much alive, grows around the hollow, its outer layers, the living bark and cambium, continuing to carry water and nutrients upward. A hollow tree is not necessarily a dying one. It is a survivor, reshaped but unbroken. Inside, you notice faint marks on the inner wall, tiny, almost imperceptible grooves. Perhaps claw marks from an animal seeking shelter. In autumn, hollows like this become havens. Owls may roost here during daylight hours. Bats cling to the wood above, hidden in shadow. Foxes might bring their young here if the forest floor offers no other refuge. The hollow is a kind of heartbeat in the woods, a steady, quiet center where life passes through but never quite lingers forever. You imagine the storms it has endured, winds so fierce they could strip a branch clean of leaves in minutes, lightning splitting the sky, perhaps striking nearby trunks, scorching bark, heavy snow weighing down limbs until they groan under the strain. And through it all, this oak has endured, each trial etching a new chapter in the texture of its bark. You press your hand against the wood again, and it feels like pressing a palm to the back of an old, patient friend. The grain beneath your fingers tells of years layered, one atop the other, growth rings you cannot see, but can almost sense, each one a record of a year's worth of sunlight, rain, and wind. Trees keep time differently than you do. They measure it not in hours or days, but in the slow accumulation of seasons. In the dimness of the hollow, your eyes adjust, and you notice the way the opening frames the forest beyond. The light filters in through shifting leaves, dappling the ground with gold. Dust motes drift in the sunbeam, each one spinning lazily before vanishing into the shade again. Somewhere beyond, the fox stands, its russet fur glinting in the light. It is still watching you, ears tilted forward, as if it knows you are part of this moment, part of the same stillness. Perhaps it too has rested in the shelter of a hollow tree, hidden from the rain or the sharp winds of winter. Foxes are creatures of adaptability. Much like the oak, they can find ways to endure, to remain rooted in their world even when everything around them shifts. You step deeper into the hollow and let your fingertips explore the smoothness where countless hands or paws have brushed past over the years. In one place, the wood curves inward into a shallow basin, and you wonder if rainwater ever collects here, offering a drink to thirsty insects or birds. Even in its hollowness, the oak gives. The quiet here is layered. There is the silence of still air, but beneath that, there is movement, the faint tap of a beetle somewhere in the bark, the distant creak of a branch shifting, the gentle hum of life going about its business. The hollow acts like a chamber, amplifying and softening these sounds all at once. You think of how many generations of forest creatures have passed through here, how many winters the tree has guarded them against the cold, how many summers it has offered shade. This is not just a tree, it is a record, a keeper of unspoken history, and you are now part of that record, if only for a fleeting moment. Stepping back toward the entrance, you tilt your head upward. Through the split trunk, you catch a glimpse of sky, pale blue behind a lace of leaves. You can almost imagine the tree's roots stretching deep into the earth, reaching for water in hidden veins, just as its branches stretch upward for light. You think about the exchange that has been happening here every day for centuries. The oak breathing in carbon dioxide from the air, exhaling oxygen for you and every creature in this forest. You, in turn, breathe out what it needs. This silent conversation between tree and traveler has been going on since the first forests covered the earth. As you step back into the open air, the warmth of the afternoon settles on your skin. The fox, still watching, tilts its head slightly, as if marking your emergence from the tree's shadow. Then it turns, slipping between the ferns, tail brushing the undergrowth like a passing thought. You follow, the memory of cool bark lingering in your palm. Somewhere ahead, the light changes, a subtle shift, like the first hint of evening. The forest seems to grow quieter, the way it does before rain or before night. And as you move forward, you begin to wonder what waits in the spaces where light meets shadow, and how the fox always seems to know the way. The hidden clearing. The forest opens into a circle of grass dotted with pale mushrooms. It feels untouched, like a place the day itself forgets to disturb. The fox sits at its center, tail curled, gaze steady, a keeper of some unspoken truth. A single white feather rests in the moss between you. You step forward, and the trees seem to lean aside. The close green of the forest, dense with shadow and layered leaves, suddenly breathes outward. Before you, the ground levels into a soft, round openness, a clearing. So quiet, it feels as if the air itself has settled into rest. The grass here is brighter, paler, as though it holds the memory of long sunlight. A ring of mushrooms circles the space, their caps pale cream with faint speckles of brown, like little moons in orbit. They tilt in various stages of growth, some still curled tight, others wide and flat, their delicate gills hidden beneath. The air smells faintly sweet, with an undertone of damp earth. You take a slow step inside. There is a sensation not of trespassing, but of entering a place that rarely receives visitors. The clearing feels as though it exists in its own rhythm, apart from the constant undercurrent of forest sounds. The distant trickle of a stream is softer here, and even the birds seem to sing more quietly at its edges. At the center sits the fox. Its russet fur glows in the muted light that falls through the open canopy. The tail is curled neatly around its paws, its gaze steady, unblinking. You feel no fear from it, only a calm awareness, as though it has been expecting you. Its ears twitch, not from alarm, but from the simple act of listening to the world breathe. Between you, lying on a bed of moss, is a single white feather. It looks impossibly light, as if the faintest breath could lift it. Its quill points toward you, its vain, smooth, and unruffled, save for a single tiny bend near the tip. You kneel, and the moss compresses softly beneath your weight. Moss is a patient thing. It has no roots, not in the way trees do. Instead, it draws moisture from the air and from the thin layer of soil beneath it. Each tiny leaf is a simple structure, yet together They form dense carpets capable of holding water like a sponge. Scientists call mosses pioneer species because they are often the first to grow on bare rock or disturbed ground. Their quiet work, holding moisture, trapping dust, slowly forming soil allows other plants to follow. You brush your fingers lightly over the moss, and it springs back, resilient. Its softness is deceptive. Moss endures extremes, surviving droughts by going dormant, then reviving when water returns. A green persistence, centuries old in some forests. The feather draws your gaze again. Feathers are intricate miracles, lightweight yet strong, composed of keratin, the same protein found in your hair and nails. Each barb branches into smaller barbules, hooked together so subtly that they hold air in place. This is how birds fly, by shaping air itself, catching invisible currents as surely as a sail catches wind. White feathers can belong to many birds, doves, gulls, herons, owls. Each uses its feathers for more than flight. In cold, they trap warmth close to the skin. In rain, they shed water with a shake. In courtship, they catch the light in ways that signal beauty or health. The feather before you may have been shed naturally, or perhaps carried here by some quiet wind. The fox tilts its head slightly, as though reading your thoughts. Its eyes are amber pools, reflecting a clarity you cannot quite name. Foxes are known for their adaptability. They live in forests, grasslands, mountains, even cities. They are skilled hunters, yet just as comfortable foraging for berries or insects. In this, they are part of the deep, subtle intelligence of the forest. Survival, through curiosity, through noticing. You notice the ring of mushrooms again. Mushroom circles have long been woven into folklore, called fairy rings in many traditions. In truth, they are signs of an underground network, a single fungus growing outward from a central point, sending thin threads called hyphae through the soil. The mushrooms you see are just the fruiting bodies, the visible part of something far larger and hidden beneath your feet. The fox glances toward the ring, as if it too knows this secret. Beneath the clearing, the fungal network may connect to tree roots, exchanging nutrients in a partnership scientists call a mycorrhizal relationship. The fungi bring minerals from the soil. The trees provide sugars made through photosynthesis. This silent trade sustains much of the forest's health. Some call it the wood wide web. You picture it now, a fine lacework beneath the moss and grass. Threads pulsing with slow exchanges, the forest's hidden bloodstream. You sit cross-legged, letting the sounds of the clearing gather around you. The faint hum of a bee drifting past, the soft whisper of grass bending under a breeze, the occasional crackle of a twig at the far edge. Time feels slower here, as though the clearing stretches moments gently apart so you can rest between them. Your gaze wanders upward. The opening in the canopy above forms a loose circle, framing a patch of sky. Thin clouds drift across it, changing shape so slowly it feels like watching thoughts pass through a quiet mind. The light they soften spreads evenly across the clearing. With no harsh shadows, the fox rises, stepping with unhurried grace toward the feather. It lowers its head, sniffing it once, then looks back at you. Its paws make no sound, on the moss, and you notice how each step leaves only the faintest impression before the green springs back. Some part of you wonders if the feather is meant as a gift, or simply as a sign, a reminder that even small things are made of intricate wonders. In the same way, this clearing feels both accidental and deliberate. Perhaps you stumbled upon it, perhaps it opened to you. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine the life that cycles through here in a single day. At dawn, dew clings to every blade of grass, and the mushrooms were jeweled crowns of moisture. A rabbit might pause to nibble at the edges. Birds hop in the grass, searching for insects. By midday, sunlight spills freely here, warming the moss and drying the dew. Bees and butterflies weave between blooms. By night, the clearing becomes a silver-lit stage for moths, their wings catching moonlight, and for the fox, slipping between shadows. When you open your eyes, the fox is still watching you, though now from the far side of the clearing. It sits just beyond the mushroom ring, tail curled again, head tilted slightly, as though considering whether to remain or move on. The space between you feels like a held breath. You reach down and lift the feather, holding it between your thumb and forefinger. It weighs almost nothing, and yet you can feel the faint structure, the central shaft, the delicate web of barbs. You twirl it gently, and it catches the breeze, rotating like a slow compass needle. The air shifts, carrying with it a cooler note, like the scent before rain. The light tilts slightly, and shadows lengthen at the edges of the clearing. The fox stands, turns toward the gap where the trees part, and begins to walk away. Its steps are silent, but the way it moves feels like an invitation. You rise, the feather still in your hand, and follow. The ring of mushrooms slips from view behind you, and the grass gives way to leaf-littered ground again. The forest resumes its denser breath, the shadows deepening between trunks. Ahead, you glimpse flashes of russet fir guiding you through a weaving path. Somewhere in the distance, you hear water, not the faint trickle from before, but a deeper, more resonant sound, like a river moving slowly over stones. The feather trembles slightly in your grip, as if catching a current of air you cannot yet feel. The fox disappears around a bend, and you quicken your pace, the forest pressing close again. You wonder if the clearing will remain there, unchanged, for whoever next finds it, or if it folds itself away, waiting until it is needed. And as you follow the sound of water, you begin to wonder what waits beyond the next turn, where the forest's hidden paths always seem to lead you toward the heart of something you do not yet know. The fox's secret path. You follow into a tunnel of autumn branches where light turns to molten gold. The air hums with the soft rustle of leaves, as if the forest is breathing with you. The fox stops one last time, meeting your eyes before vanishing into the stillness, and you are left with the path, the feather, and the knowing hush of autumn. Asterisk, you step forward, and the forest seems to fold around you. The air is warm with the faint, fading heat of afternoon, carrying the scent of dry leaves and something sweet, a perfume released when plant cells surrender to autumn's slow decay. The light is not simply golden here. It is as though the air itself has dissolved into liquid amber, a gentle suspension of dust, pollen, and the tiniest drifting threads of spider silk. Each one catches the sun at a slightly different angle, turning the tunnel ahead into a living tapestry of glimmers. The fox's tail, a flare of rust and cream, disappears and reappears between shadowed gaps. You follow, your feet pressing into the soft litter of last season's leaves and years before that, each step compressing centuries of forest memory into the smallest whisper. Leaves decompose slowly, their intricate veining once the roads for water and nutrients, now becoming the scaffold for fungi, beetles, and the unseen multitudes of bacteria that turn forest floor into fertile soil. The path narrows, and the branches arch lower, forming a natural vault. Sunlight filters through them in narrow bands, and you notice how the light bends around each edge. It's the same principle that causes a blade of grass to glow when the sun sets behind it, or the thin skin of a leaf to turn luminous, a gentle scattering of light through plant tissue, each cell refracting and diffusing in its own subtle way. You think of how this bending and scattering is not so different from the way clouds become crimson at dusk, or how the sky deepens to blue when the sun sinks low particles and moisture, sifting sunlight into colors that feel almost too beautiful to belong to physics. Somewhere far ahead, a small bird trills, the sound trembling in the stillness. The fox pauses, its ears turned toward the sound, each triangular cup swiveling to locate the source. You've read that foxes can hear the faint rustle of a vole tunneling beneath snow from over 20 meters away, a skill that is less magic than physics and patience. The sound waves travel through air and ground alike, and the fox's ears, slightly offset in height, help it calculate direction with uncanny precision. Here, in the quiet, you realize how different your own senses feel, not sharpened for survival, but softened for wonder. The tunnel deepens. Fallen leaves gather in sheltered pockets, creating little pools of color: copper, ochre, pale yellow, each one a final signature of a tree's season. The shapes are familiar: the lobed hands of oak, the pointed stars of maple, the delicate ellipses of birch. Each leaf holds a story in its veins, a record of the months it spent capturing sunlight and carbon dioxide, weaving them into sugars, feeding both tree and forest. In summer, you might have walked past without noticing, but here, with the pace of the day slowing, you feel the full weight of their quiet labor. A gust stirs the canopy, and a drift of leaves spirals down. They fall not straight, but in little arcs and curves, tracing invisible patterns in the air. You think of how scientists studying leaf fall discovered that each species tends to have its own pattern of descent. Some flutter chaotically, some spin like coins, others sway side to side. These patterns aren't random. They help leaves settle away from the tree's base, spreading nutrients more evenly into the soil. The forest is full of such quiet strategies, all hidden in plain sight. The fox is still ahead, now half hidden behind a tangle of blackthorn. Its eyes catch the light in two brief sparks before it turns and slips away again. You follow, and the tunnel bends to the right, the ground sloping gently downward. Here, the air feels cooler, carrying the faint mineral scent of water. You realize you are walking toward a hidden stream, not the broad, open kind you crossed before, but a narrow ribbon running beneath the cover of roots and stone. You hear it before you see it, a muted murmur, as if the forest itself were speaking in its sleep. When you reach the edge, the stream is no wider than your stride. Its water is dark, with tannins, the same natural compounds that give tea its color. These tannins leach from leaves and bark, tinting the water into a liquid version of the forest floor. Beneath the surface, you see the flicker of tiny fish minnows, perhaps their scales flashing silver in the dim light. You kneel, watching the current bend around a moss-covered stone, the patterns shifting in constant renewal. You remember that even here, in the smallest trickle, there is a whole world of life. Insects cling to the undersides of stones, feeding on leaf litter caught in the current. Water striders skate across the surface, their legs dimpling the water with perfect rings. Microbes, billions of them, drift unseen, breaking down organic matter, recycling it into the living fabric of the forest. The fox waits on the far bank, paws silent on the damp soil. For a moment, you meet its gaze again, and something passes between you, not language, but a shared stillness. You step across the stream, your boot landing on a mossy root that shifts slightly under your weight. The air here feels older somehow, heavier with the scent of wet earth. The tunnel of branches begins to open, but not fully. You see hints of sky, the pale blue fractured by autumn leaves. The fox moves more slowly now, as though inviting you to notice what's around you. The way the lichen climbs the tree bark in slow, branching maps. The way ivy spirals in perfect Fibonacci curves. The way a single shaft of light strikes a patch of fern, turning it almost translucent. Your thoughts drift with your pace. You think of how foxes are creatures of edges, not deep forest dwellers, nor fully creatures of open field. They thrive in between, in the margins, where two worlds meet, forest and meadow, shadow and light. There's something in that, a lesson you can't quite name, about how life often gathers most richly in the thresholds. The air grows quieter still, as though even the wind has paused to listen. You hear the faint patter of acorns falling somewhere in the distance, a slow percussion marking the seasons turning. Oaks drop thousands of acorns each year, more than they could ever grow into trees. Many will feed squirrels, deer, and jays. Some will be buried and forgotten, given the chance to sprout in spring. It's a kind of patience you can feel in your chest, the patience of seasons and cycles, unhurried by human clocks. The path beneath your feet narrows to little more than a deer track, winding between low hazel and tall grass, browned by frost. The fox slips ahead, then vanishes entirely, the golden tip of its tail swallowed by the shadows. You pause, listening, but there is no sound of its passing. Only the faint rustle of leaves settling back into stillness. You realize you are alone now, though the feeling is not of loss, but of being trusted with something fragile. The tunnel ahead glows faintly with late light, and you follow, each step a quiet agreement with the forest around you. You carry the white feather in your pocket, light as breath, curved like a question mark, and you feel its presence as though it remembers the bird that once wore it. Somewhere ahead, the trees begin to part. The air shifts cooler with the faint taste of open sky, and you know you are approaching the end of this path. Yet you also know that endings here are never truly endings. They are simply places where one kind of light fades and another begins. You step forward and the last branches bend away. The sky opens above you, pale and immense, and the path continues, curving gently into the unknown. And now the path is yours. The fox has gone, but the stillness remains a gift pressed into your hands. Carry it with you into the dark, into your dreams, and let the night hold you